An American airline paid $16 million for a used jet. The Boeing rolled off the line in 1995. It's 30 years old. And it costs more than a brand new 737 from the factory. Think about that. Picture a used pickup truck selling for more than a new sedan. That's the 757 market today. These planes aren't sitting in museums. They're flying real routes every day, full of paying passengers. So here's the question Boeing won't answer. Why pay $16 million for a jet they killed 20 years ago? Why hasn't anybody built a replacement? And why does the whole industry quietly admit they made a mistake? This is the story of the most expensive memo in modern aviation. To get what Boeing threw away, you've got to go back to August 31st, 1978. That day, Eastern Airlines and British Airways jointly ordered 40 aircraft. The plane didn't exist yet. It was just called the 7N7. Boeing had been chasing a replacement for the tri-jet 727 for years because the rules were shifting. New Stage 3 noise regulations were coming. Fuel got brutally expensive after the 1973 oil shock, and again in '79. Airlines needed quieter. They needed cheaper. So Boeing made a call that'd echo for decades. They'd build two jets at the same time. The narrowbody would be the 757. The widebody would be the 767. They'd share a glass cockpit. They'd share avionics. Pilots could fly both with one type rating. Here's the part nobody talks about. That hasn't been repeated in commercial aviation. Not once. The prototype flew on February 19, 1982. FAA certification landed in December that same year. On January 1, 1983, Eastern Airlines put it on the line. And right away, pilots said something weird. They said it didn't fly like an airliner. They said it flew like a fighter jet. There was a reason. Boeing had bolted on two enormous engines, the Rolls-Royce RB211 or the Pratt & Whitney PW2000. Those were wide-body engines on a narrow-body frame. The thrust-to-weight ratio came out at 0.34. For perspective, the Boeing 777 sits around 0.285. Only the Concorde beat it. Imagine that, a passenger jet with the muscle of a supersonic. Fully loaded, it could lift off a runway 1,600 meters long. It climbed out of Quito 2,400 meters up on a hot day, packed with passengers. No other narrowbody could do that. 20 years later, none can. Then came the moment that changed the map. In 1986, the FAA granted ETOPS 120. ETOPS sounds like jargon, but the meaning's simple. For decades, a twin-engine jet couldn't fly more than 1 hour from a runway. The rule existed because two engines were seen as too risky over an ocean. ETOPS 120 doubled that. Suddenly, the 757 could fly Boston to London, Reykjavik to New York, Shannon to Newark. Here's what most people don't know. Boeing never designed it for the Atlantic. Engineers built it for domestic American routes. But airlines crunched the numbers and saw something nobody planned. A narrow-body twin could cross an ocean with 200 passengers and turn a profit on routes that bled money with a wide-body. The 757 didn't enter the transatlantic market. It invented one. Through the 1990s, this jet became the workhorse nobody could replace. Delta flew more than 100 of them. American Airlines pushed past 140 after swallowing TWA. United, Continental, British Airways, Icelandair, they all built networks around it. By the time the line shut down, 1,050 had rolled out of Renton, Washington. 54 airlines flew them. Then, decades later, the jet got its strangest customer. You probably know him. In 2011, Donald Trump bought a used 757 from Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft. The airframe itself was built in 1991. He gold-plated the seatbelt buckles. He installed 24-karat fixtures in the bathroom. He called it Trump Force One. That jet still flies. So do four others nobody talks about, designated C-32 by the United States Air Force. When the Vice President travels, when the First Lady travels, when the Secretary of State travels, they fly a modified 757. The call sign, Air Force 2. And then, on a quiet October day in 2003, Boeing did something airline executives still can't explain. They announced the 757 was dead. The immediate trigger was small. Continental had canceled its remaining orders for the stretched 757-300. The full sales campaign that year produced 5 new orders. 5. After September 11th, the whole American airline industry was bleeding. United, US Airways, Delta, all heading into bankruptcy or already there. Demand for new narrowbodies with wide-body engines had evaporated. So Boeing did the math. Imagine Boeing in a Chicago boardroom in 2003. Picture the slide. The capabilities of the newest 737s, combined with the new Boeing 787, they argued, would cover the 757 market. Here's the analogy. It's like replacing a bottle of wine with a can of Coke and a glass of whiskey. Separately, they're fine. Together, they're not the same drink. 2 planes would replace 1. On paper, it worked. In that boardroom, it looked obvious. It was wrong. On November 28, 2005, the last 757 ever built was delivered to Shanghai Airlines. The Renton line shut down. Tooling got crated. Suppliers moved on. Boeing was confident. The 787 Dreamliner was coming for the long routes. The 737 Next Generation would handle the short ones. Between them, the 757 niche would close itself. Except it wasn't a niche. It was a category. A narrowbody with the legs of a widebody and the punch of a fighter doesn't fit either box. So what happened? Airlines kept flying what they had. They flew them harder. They flew them longer. They started hunting for a replacement. And they found nothing. Boeing's first answer was the 737 MAX 10. On paper, it has the range. In reality, it doesn't have the thrust. It can't match the 757 on hot and high airports. It can't carry the payload on long, thin routes. The second answer was supposed to be the Boeing 797. Internally, they called it the new mid-market airplane. First sketches landed in 2015, 225 to 270 seats. Range of 5,000 nautical miles, a clean sheet design for exactly the gap the 757 left. Then the 737 MAX crisis hit. 2 crashes, a worldwide grounding, billions in losses. In 2020, Boeing officially paused the 797 program. That's corporate speak for canceled. While Boeing froze, Airbus moved. The A321XLR was designed deliberately as a 757 replacement. 500-plus orders before it ever flew. In November 2024, Iberia put the first one into service. United Airlines alone ordered 50 of them for transatlantic routes. So what did Boeing do? They walked away from their own category, and the Europeans walked in and took it. So here we are in 2026. Delta still operates around 127 Boeing 757s, the biggest fleet on Earth. Average age of those airframes? Roughly 30 years. One of them, registration N649DL, was delivered in May 1989. You're a Delta pilot. Your plane is older than you. The most flown 757 in the world has logged almost 100,000 hours and over 43,000 cycles. Delta's president Glenn Hauenstein said it publicly. The airline won't put narrow-body Airbuses on the transatlantic market because of, in his words, product and brand issues. The translation's simple. The 757 is the only narrow-body Delta trusts on the Atlantic. So Delta keeps the old jets flying. And here's the part that breaks every rule of aviation. On the used market, the price of a 30-year-old 757 has more than doubled in 3 years. In 2021, a decent airframe sold for between $3.5 and $11 million. By the end of 2024, between $7.8 million and almost $16 million. Demand for a discontinued aircraft climbing. That isn't supposed to happen. When Boeing signed the death certificate for the 757 in October 2003, the executives in that room thought they were trimming a slow seller. They thought the 737 and the 787 would absorb the demand. They thought the math worked. It didn't. They didn't just retire a model. They handed Airbus the most profitable narrowbody category in the world. 20 years later, no engineer at Boeing has been allowed to build the replacement. No board has approved the budget. The tooling's gone. The supply chain's gone. The people who knew how to build it have retired. And every day, somewhere over the North Atlantic, a 30-year-old jet is doing a job no plane in production can do. So what's the lesson? Engineering excellence can die in a memo. Bringing it back cannot.